Hello, everyone. Welcome to my session on supply chain turnaround. I'm going to be talking about some lean transformation principles, but most importantly, how in the business I work for, how I'm trying to stitch that together to some AI opportunities. I think one of the key lessons learned during today is a lot of people talk about the what. Today I'm going to talk about the how, and I'm going to be quite humble and just share with you where I'm at. I haven't got all the answers, and at the end of the session, I'll take some time for Q&A and really chew the fat with all of you, get your perspectives, and we could go through a few examples. My name's Alex Johnson, and I've been in supply chain and transformation my whole career. I mainly focus in EMEA and rest of the world, and my exposure has mainly been in complex manufacturing organizations and supply companies with a service-first mindset. So I'm not going to do a sales pitch to you today, but I'm just going to go through real-life reflections, and we'll chew the fat a little bit on AI at the end. I think from walking around today, we're all in a similar position. We have a fear of missing out. Are we missing out on where we should be on AI? But also, are we ahead? Are we behind? What are we doing? So hopefully bring some of that to this session. So I work for a business called Clinigen Group, and we are partnering biotech and big pharma businesses who, particularly smaller biotech really, where they're nursing that molecule and trying to take it through the drugs pipeline to commercialization. And in most of those instances, the intellectual property is only got a 20-year lifespan. So if there's delays in taking your product through the drug pipeline into commercialization, you can end up only having 10 years of commercialization before you get competitors with comparator products in the marketplace. So we work really hard with those pharma and biotech businesses, and they transform themselves every 10 years because the drug pipeline is quite tight around that timing of owning the intellectual property. So that means if we're going to partner with them, we have to transform and reinvent ourselves every 10 years as well, which is why I'm here today talking to you about transformation. So we cover phase 1, 2, 3 on the drug pipeline. What does that mean? So in phase 1, we offer consulting services just as very clever minds are building out that molecule and they're seeing opportunities perhaps to take that into further R&D and then commercialization. We support them with regulatory affairs, pharmacovigilance and medical affair data and information to help them try and get a pathway into clinical trials. And when they're ready to go into a clinical trial, we'll help them run that clinical trial. We'll also physically run the supply chain for that clinical trial. And then in phase 3, where it gets quite exciting, we will look at perhaps managed access programs for end-of-life therapies, and then general access for licensed and unlicensed. And that's where the emotion of the business comes in, where I have a lot of people working in my team where if you're in last chance saloon, you need that medication for that last 3 or 6 months of life. We're the company that helps partner with healthcare professionals and pharma companies to try and get those hard-to-reach medicines to you to prolong your life. And that's where the emotion in the team comes around there is good that we're doing for people. So as a business, our mission is we accelerate access to critical medicines across the globe. We call ourselves pathfinders because pharma industry is notoriously one of the most, if not the most, regulated industries globally. So it's extremely challenging as you're trying to navigate a supply chain through all those different regulations and quality requirements. But we focus on 3 basic lean principles: voice of customer, voice of business, voice of process. And that's common sense, right? Everyone will have heard those as part of lean manufacturing, but it's not always common practice. So we've made it common practice in Clinigen, where voice of customer, we take those customer insights, we convert them into voice of business, service level agreements, pricing. What does that all look like? And that gets into my area around voice of process. What are the capabilities in supply chain I need to build to enable that service level requirement from a commercial perspective, for selling, and then also customer requirements. So that's where I focus on what I call supply chain enabled sales, really trying to create, as was mentioned earlier today, that opportunity to improve gross margin. So I follow 5 service principles. Again, common sense, but not always necessarily common practice. So target operating model. I've worked for the big S&P 500s and FTSE 100 businesses in my career, and it's the same every time. Front of house looks really great, but you go through the back door and into the back office and you scratch beneath the surface and there's opportunities everywhere, there's waste everywhere. And certainly in a smaller, medium-sized enterprise such as Clinigen, we're a 550 million revenue business. We're at 80 million EBIT this year. Target operating model, just having that level 3 target operating model of each of our areas, not just supply chain, really helps us to then stitch that into our S&OP process. And in my business, what I've done is I've physically created the S&OP bench. So I haven't got integrated S&OP processing or integrated business planning. What I've done is I've gone across the business, who is working in S&OP, different floors. I put them all together physically on one bench, put them right in the middle of customer service, sales, and procurement, so that they're exchanging information as friends for the first time. And then I'm trying to build in the process of having an S&OP weekly meeting, a monthly review, and linking that into getting a base standard. And that helps because SCL, so safety, health, environment, and quality, is really important in all our supply chains, but particularly in pharma. And if I get that license to operate right, that gives me the license to then go and build the supply chain. And that helps me get into operational excellence. So previously, I was VP for a global manufacturing excellence program for Ecolab. And I learned a lot from that program, but most importantly, following a good friend of mine who was a chief engineering manager, a director previously at Unilever, and spent 6 years following him around, doing all the Gemba walks. And you learn so much about how to actually manage operational excellence where it matters on the shop floor. And then we're working on network operations. So I've done quite a lot of right sizing of the network in Clinigen. And now I'm building for a future state strategically within that network. So loss analysis. So 6 years ago, my EVP in another business came to me and said, we've got 7 billion total delivered costs. I want 1 billion out over 3 years. Thinking, my goodness, how am I going to do this? And we went back to base lean principles. There's no other, there wasn't a mystery about it. We went for the 80 for the 20, and we got everyone. We got 1,500 associates engaged. 80 for the 20. 80, where's the biggest bang for the buck? And we really focused on ideal state, and we got everyone thinking about mini Kaizen events, thinking about current state, what's the future state linked to the business planning round, and how do we calibrate that? And of course, in a business like Clinigen, where it's private equity backed, it's like drinking from the fire hose sometimes. The board is challenging at the best of times. It's all about net structural savings. So I focus a lot on the loss analysis program and driving type 1 P&L savings, type 2 price, so where I'm getting price improvement commercially, and type 3 around cash, stock, held, excess, and obsolete. How do I go about this once I've identified where the biggest bang for the buck is? And that's where I do value stream mapping. Again, common sense, not necessarily common practice. People talk a lot about value stream mapping, but do they ever do it? We do. We specifically, this is what we do in all of our processes. We run, and this is an example of our procure to pay. 2 days in a workshop, mapping the process as a pre-read beforehand, but then refining it in session, never going further than 9 processes, and capturing the pain points. And you can see all the different pain points. And this is just one, it's quite a few pages of how we categorize them all, root causes, solutions, who's going to own it. And then we do the multi-voting piece. So we have a bit of fun in session where we say, okay, let's multi-vote. And the top 3, they get it. The top 3, they're the ones we're going to go at. And then we measure what the next top 3 are going to be and the top 3 after that. And then we get into a deployment and execution. So when I run the workshop, all of my loss trees are now calibrated into Power BI. So every single spend element across my supply chain, I can double click within seconds and it will drop down into all the various elements. This is an example on transportation where you can see 770K with Marken and so on. And you can then double click down by country. I can do it by division, all sorts of different variations. But it shows me where the opportunity is. And the business I'm in, it's about driving EBIT performance. So I'm rigorously focusing that as my first phase. And then I get into fishbone exercise. So the famous Toyota professor spent 50 years running this. And this is his favorite tool, the fishbone. Again, people like, that's old school or whatever. But the fact is, we're teaching ourselves, when we go through this process, we are capturing all the little post-it notes in the Miro board of exactly where we're at. And then we're multi-voting, and then we're taking it into our prioritization hopper. So we have an ideas portal. You cannot just go and deploy an idea. You have to put it into the ideas portal. I've got a great lady in my team, Hazel, she's my business benefits delivery manager. She owns that, and then we work that through, and then we prioritize, and that then feeds into the governance, which I'll talk about in a few moments. But one of the big lessons learned has been about people. So when we run these fishbone exercises, it really helps people rise and become a star, feel empowered to bring the water level down, remove mindless tasks. It absolutely drives me insane in supply chain, where we stop people coming in to the business and do the job that they thought they were going to do, and they end up doing admin. They end up chasing mindless tasks. So I talk a lot with my teams and town halls about bringing the water level down and removing mindless tasks. And one of the best things we've found is we've had some of the greatest minds in our business through consultancy and McKinsey and everything else. But do you know what? It's the people that are doing the work that get the dirt behind the fingernails. It's the people doing the work that roll up their sleeves. And where we've got to is a place where people say, Alex, let me take that for you. I want to go and change my area. I don't need other people to do it for me. But now I know the tools to use, I'll go and have a go at that. So this is before we even get into the AI world. We're actually delivering 80 for the 20 by just getting back to basics to get that baseline, because you will fail with AI if you try and drop AI on a system that's not predictable. And in quite a few of our areas in Clinigen, we don't have a predictable base. So that means that we have to be smart around improving our baseline first. And one of the things that keeps me awake at night is, where do I ignore that? Don't do the process mapping. Don't waste time on that and just go all in and go straight to the AI solution. And so we're discussing some of those options at the moment. And you'll see at the end of these few slides in a moment where I'll give you some snippets of where I've started to deploy AI and where we started to get some results. So how do I manage all this? Again, not here to talk about the what, but the how. So people today have talked about governance, but I've not seen what is the actual governance. So I'm going to share with you. You can steal it with pride. But again, we run what I call SQPDC reviews every day. So safety, quality, delivery, performance, control, where we have 15-minute calls, one representative from customer service, one from sales, one from ops. Where are we against adherence to plan, adherence to schedule for the day? Where are we against OTIF for the day? We get we have boards on our production line around the picking in our warehouse. We track every day how many people have we got in. They physically draw the line. It forces them to think this through, physically draw the line on the board, map how far could we get on, what's our capacity for the day, what's the volume coming through, where are we going to get that pinch point, and therefore by midday we're already prioritizing orders to make sure that those priority orders go out the door today. And then that folds into a weekly S&OP session, which we've only recently started, just being honest. And then that goes into a monthly S&OP meeting as well. Separately, I spoke about it in a roundtable a few moments ago before this session. We run an OGSM process, so objectives, goals, stretches, and measures. I have a one-pager for all of my functional areas. So I don't just run supply chain and logistics globally. I also run global procurement, global customer service, global data analytics, and also global transformation, both for commercial and operations. So quite a lot going on, but the good news is if I need to get something done, there's not many people in my way, so just get stuff done. So we get everyone together and we run what I call a service guild. So I bring my 5 departmental functional leaders together once a month, and every week we also chew the fat. So we have a 30-minute call where we just go through how's it going against our OGSM, how's it going against performance targets. You know, I know that week to date, up until close of play yesterday, I'm at 99.2 OTIF in my European distribution center. That's the kind of drumbeat we've created, and we have the boards in our respective warehouses. From a governance perspective, last couple of slides now, and I'll open up to conversation, but from a governance perspective, we did not allow any project to happen without one-page project charter. Lots of people talk about that. It ain't happening unless it's got a charter. We also get people to capture even their mini Kaizens in a project charter. It just gets into the rigor of following the process. And then we feed our projects into what we call the Transformation Investment Desk. But we don't mess around with, you've got to wait till a certain date in the month for the Transformation Investment Desk. What we do the bit of an Amazon Jeff Bezos piece where you have to write your charter. It gets sent out the day before, pre-read, and then we just ad hocly run the Transformation Investment Desk. So sometimes we could run it 3 times in a month. So if on a Monday somebody says, I've got a great idea, I'm really desperate to get it moving, by Wednesday we're having the Transformation Investment Desk and making a decision with myself, finance lead, etc. So we don't hang around, we just move at real pace. And that feeds into our portfolio board. So just top line in summary before I talk a little bit about some of the AI projects. So voice of customer, voice of business, voice of process, bringing that all together to set the direction. We're then rigorous on target operating model, but we don't go too far into level 5. We just go down to a level 3. And then we get into that diagnostic loss tree analysis, value stream mapping, and then recalibrate target operating model, business process modeling, net structural savings, what are we delivering? What does that look like? And then we go again. So last slide here, and then we can chew the fat a little bit on questions and thoughts and maybe examples. But we have 3 key areas in our AI space where operationalizing one Clinigen approach, so trying to bring that commercial element all together, service excellence and operational excellence. What we did last week, those of you that were linked in with me before today's session, we ran our first hackathon. So I'm not going to stand up here and say, oh, we do hackathons every week and aren't we amazing and everything else. No, we went for it last week for the first time. We managed to pinch a couple of people from IBM. I don't think they realized what they were letting themselves in for, but they came and sat with us. They were very humble because they're from a bigger organization than us. But literally over 2 days, by the end of the first day, we built a solution for, just being honest, we transact quite a lot of our supply chain via Teams and email because what's happening is commercial have lost faith in some of the legacy before I joined. And so we've created a module in that hackathon last week, which we want to go live in the next 2 weeks, where we're going to erase that lack of confidence in the commercial space, where people won't go and self-serve in the system. They start losing patience, then they start phoning people randomly around what's happening with this urgent order, where's all that happening. So that's one of the pieces that came out the hackathon, but also the big one we're working on at the moment is in procurement. It's something I learned many years ago when I was looking to extend a customer service team. And we actually got to the point, well, actually, how do we stop the phone ringing, most importantly? And so the same in our procurement space. We're doing back-to-back orders. We're not thinking through the portfolio on bulk buying and how we can manage that. So that's another one we're working through. But certainly on the AI front, our big wins have been in legal, where we've introduced a couple of months ago the spellbook process. So and essentially all our master service agreements are now in spellbook, saving loads of time to check that dates of renewal and so on. We're on top of it well in advance. We're not just letting things slide. The other piece we've been working on is excess and obsolete. So last year, we spent 2 weeks with Google, and we bruised the planet a lot in Clinigen, right? So when we get the sales forecast wrong, a year or so later, all of a sudden, we are throwing that product in the bin. So we need it for our ESG. We need it for EcoVadis scoring, which we use in front of clients. So we built a solution that in advance would, many months before the famous 45 days before it goes out for out of date, we use AI to capture who bought that product previously, how much did they buy, where they're based, what's their contact details, who was it? And then we give that to our sales team to go out there and get on the phones and find a home for this product before I start destroying it and putting it in the bin. We're not there yet, but it's interesting when you talk about engagement, and I've learned a lot to get better at engagement, but my CFO, who's no longer with us, refused to sign that off, didn't think that's an issue. And yet I've got 1.5 million of E&O in just one division at the end of the year. So now we're in a different place, and I've got the funding to turn that on and move forward. So look, I'm going to open it to the floor now for chew the fat a little bit around any other people's thoughts, or maybe you've got questions. I've got lots of examples, but I didn't want to bore you all in the front end in the presentation, but I hope you found that useful, sharing the how, not the what. And I'll pause there.
Thank you very much. Very insightful. Talking about the Kaizen methodology, are you using any technology to capture all the documentation? Because it's a lot of things that you need to track and monitor. That I'm wondering if you are using any tool, IT tool that you can recommend.
No, because so mini Kaizens really it's about education. So we have set rules around benefits and costs, where there's quite a high hurdle rate before it becomes a project. So that encourages people to just go and have a go. We do mark them on the board, the mini Kaizens we're doing, and people are off doing, just so that we make sure we haven't got hundreds of 1% factors all going on and drowning out the other projects we're trying to deploy. But mini Kaizens, we leave people to do, but what we do ask is, when they turn it on and they capture a benefit, that they have an opportunity to present that to the SLT. They have an opportunity to present that at the town hall. So that's how we manage mini Kaizens. It's difficult in the business I'm in at the moment because I haven't got scale and breadth. I mean, when I was in an S&P 500, I had a huge team, hundreds of people, and it's a lot easier to manage when all of your 80 factories are all following that mini Kaizen approach, but it just needs careful management.
How do you track the savings?
So I track the savings with my benefits delivery manager, Hazel. She has quite a busy time. So what we do, we just have a rigorous process around any net structural savings benefit. We've trained everyone on all the different types, type 1, 2, and 3, around direct P&L, commercial pricing, and cash. And then we have to basically justify our transformation team's existence. So we specifically capture that. We have a monthly review with, we have an MBR with the CEO, and we go through our NSS benefits plan against our full potential plan and where we're at against that. But it's not necessarily a specific off-the-shelf tool that we brought in. We've just created it through Power BI. To be honest, sometimes that's the simplicity of it, just to get it moving. We may, and if it's larger scale, yes, I'd probably look at a particular solution for that. But where we are right now, it's just about getting momentum.
Okay, thank you. Normally, mini Kaizens is 5 days for you, or how many days is the Kaizen?
So we do run Kaizen events where we'll do a couple of days, and we did that with our Future Shapers program, which is a program I set up. We took 15 really talented people that wanted to move through their career, and they have every month a session with a business unit or a function. And when they come to the supply chain session, I do 2 days running a mini Kaizen event, teaching them how to do mini Kaizen, teaching them about plan, do, check, act, repeat, and teach them about Gemba walks, most importantly. So it's the first thing I do every day. I'm on a Gemba walk, walking around, not trying to find fault, but trying to find opportunities as a team around where there's waste and loss across the operation. And very quickly, people take pride in how they go about that work.
Okay, thank you.
So there's one just behind you.
Great insight, Alex. A quick question. What's been your biggest hurdle in this journey?
So I think it's not necessarily a hurdle, but it's personal pride. So I really focus on my own personal drive, attitude, and confidence. And for me, transformation is about leadership, absolute priority. And I learned a lot listening to senior leaders. Very lucky to be classically trained throughout my career, but also opportunities to shadow really industry experts in loss analysis, in mini Kaizen, and in total productive maintenance. And so my biggest lesson learned has really been around being that authentic leader. I take it really seriously to ensure that I'm on point. So I'm not talking out of turn, I can share it. So last week I had to go through 7 redundancies on the shop floor. I spent a weekend practicing how I was going to do that shop floor announcement. It's really important to me to get that right. And you know what? When I presented that and we went into that redundancy, we still got full clearance on that day. We were still at 98% OTIF for the week. People took a pride in their work because I feel the way we pitched that difficult conversation. So for me, supply chain is about leadership first and foremost. And I've been very blessed to, what I think, learn from some of the best in the 5 or so big corporates I've worked in.
One more. Anybody?
Last one, if not. It's good. Thank you so much for listening. Really appreciate it.